Welcome to FJP Investment Insights with your host, Jamie Johnson. It's been quite a while since we did one of these, and I'm very much looking forward to getting stuck into this. And today we're going to look at the option of commercial versus residential property investment. Which of the two should you consider? What are the connotations of commercial and what are the connotations of residential, the pros, the cons, and so on? A common question posed by property investors: what is the better investment, commercial or residential? And the answer here can depend on quite a few factors, primarily including what are you looking to get out of the investment. And we've prepared a comprehensive ultimate guide series which is listed on our website fjpinvestment.co.uk, and we're going to put this into audio podcast form and just break down the two different types of property investments and hopefully give you a better understanding of how each investment type works. And it will, perhaps give you clarity over which investment is right for you. So what is residential property? Well, the most common type of property for investors, residential property, refers to property which has been zoned specifically for living or dwelling, and that's for individuals of a household. It's a good idea for property investors to become familiar with the different types of UK residential property available. So we in the UK, we're exceedingly fortunate to have a wide range of housing options available to us. If you want to invest in the UK, you might be confused by the different kinds of property that you can invest in. And that's why we're going to break it down. Flats, also known as apartments. Well, flats are the most economic type of property in the UK, and in many cases, it's often seen as the first step onto the property ladder. I mean, the cost of a flat is often lower than that of a house, which for economic reasons makes it an excellent choice for individuals or small families, so mum and dad and one child, for example. And it's no surprise that they're called flats, given that most comprise of a single floor where you'll find all of the rooms conveniently located. We've got purpose-built flats. The concept of purpose-built flats is simple enough. It's flats which have been created with the express intention of being flats from the outset. Okay, so it's not a house or a building which has been converted. It's a construction from scratch with its sole purpose of becoming a flat, a purpose-built flat. As opposed to a large house which has been divided or compartmentalized into separate dwellings. We've got flat conversions. So in contrast to purpose-built, we've got structures which are then converted into flats. So you might take an old council building which is 3 floors, which of course is commercial, and then you can convert that into flats. So that's flats conversions. We've got studio flats. It's here that things can become a little bit muddled. So certainly be careful. It's common for 1-bedroom apartments to be confused with studios, even though the genuine definition of a studio flat is really distinctly different. In a studio apartment, everything except the bathroom is contained in a single room. So, a typical studio flat, you've got really one room which consists of your kitchen, your sleeping area, and your lounging area. So it's one room, and then to the side you're going to have a little room, which is the toilet and the shower. So that's a studio flat. Yeah, I mean that's good for one or two people at best. Doesn't really work too well when you've got kids and whatnot. So another option is maisonettes. Maisonettes, you may not have heard of it if you're listening to this from overseas. Even though the name maisonette is often misunderstood, a real maisonette is defined by a single rule. It must have a separate entrance that leads directly to the outside. And this means that a maisonette lacks a common interior space. Additionally, we've seen maisonettes, two-story constructions, unlike the typical one-story flat. I mean, as I say, things get confusing because some purpose-built flats, they have two-story homes in them, but the front doors open into hallways which are shared with other flats, and often referred to as maisonettes. These units, they don't really open up to the exterior of the building, so yeah, they're not strictly speaking maisonettes. Bungalows. Next, we'll consider the type of houses that are available for you to invest in. So bungalows are typically one-story homes. Often elderly people will go for a bungalow, so they don't have to get up the stairs into the bedrooms. So a bungalow is a one floor level on the ground. You've got your bedroom, you've got your lounge, you've got your kitchen, all within the same property. And as the bungalows, they're not rising over multiple stories. They tend to be spread out, which means they would frequently take up more ground than a typical home would. As a result, bungalows, they're not really being built in the UK any longer. So they're really invariably from the 20th century when they've been constructed. And of course, due to their rarity, I mean, they can be expensive. And like I say, bungalows particularly appeal for elderly persons because, they don't have to get up the stairs, and that makes complete sense. Another option is cottages. Cottages are the beautiful, formerly the domain of cotters, a colloquial name for agricultural labourers who are granted tenancy of the property in exchange for their services. Cottages are, they're beautiful. We associate cottages with maybe a bit of countryside. Beautiful cottages. Terraced houses. This is quite popular. Things are starting to become a bit more straightforward now. So a terraced house is really a house that is part of a row of houses. So it's not on the end of, say, 6 houses. It's somewhere in the middle. It's got a house either side of it. We also have end of terrace houses. This is where let's say it's a row of 6 houses. It's the house on either end, so we call it an end of terrace house. Gives you a little bit more privacy, I guess, being on the end. If you're in the middle, you've got neighbours looking in from both sides. Another option is semi-detached. So a semi-detached house, a bit like an end of terrace house in that they both share one side with another house, but unlike a long row of terraced houses, a semi-detached house is only connected to one other house. Detached houses, now there are no common walls between your house and another house, so it basically means it's a house on its own. And yeah, this is a good option. It's an ideal scenario to be living. Detached houses, they often have a front and a rear garden, built on decent sized plots of land. Yeah, not bad. And then the final option I've got for you is mansions. A mansion, of course, that's the winner of them all. A mansion is a palatial residence that belongs to typically a well-off individual or family. You'd certainly want it to be a family, because living in a mansion is not much fun when you're on your own. Mansions, large, impressive, and not necessarily stately, but big. Basically put, the meaning of the term mansion is it's ambiguous, although it will invariably be linked to wealthy and luxury living of some sort. Now let's just cross over into commercial real estate, the different types of commercial. So it doesn't matter whether it's a house or an apartment. The British, they have a famous love affair with their homes. Commercial real estate has become increasingly popular, and that's really an overspill from the love of property over the years. But generally speaking, property investors in the UK are more focused on residential, and of course, as that's got hot and increasingly more difficult to find deals since there's so much competition, there's been an overspill into commercials. So let's just break that down. There's really five main categories: offices, retail. So within retail, you've got retail stores, shopping centres, shops. You've got industrial, which could be a warehouse, a factory. Of course, you've got leisure being hotels, pubs, restaurants, cafes, even sports facilities. And then finally, healthcare, which would be your medical centres, hospitals, nursing homes. And commercial real estate comes with its own classifications. So from the town and country planning order, there's categories, as to the various types of uses that each building is able to be used for. So you might own, for example, a property, a premises, which is currently being used for a restaurant. Well, if you want to repurpose that into, let's say, for example, a bar or nightlife, there's different licenses that are required. So you would need to get those. But yeah, it's all very interesting. Commercial is a good sector, if you know what you're doing. The good thing with just basic real estate, basic property, residential, I mean, it's fairly simple to grasp. Commercial, it's not so difficult, but there's less information on it, and might argue that actually it is the better of the two. So let's look at some trends in commercial property for 2022. So what type of trends are we likely to see emerge by the end of this year? Just get myself a little bit of water. Investment decisions, they're increasingly being shaped by structural market changes, and that includes the effects of demography, technology, as well as the long-term ESG, so environmental, social, and governance factors, factors such as the rising prices, obviously Brexit being done, the ongoing COVID influences, as well as adjusting to new businesses and consumer habits, right? Because things are changing and they all have an impact on the economy. We've seen, an appetite from people not to be in city centres. They got a taste for working from home. They like that. Obviously, people are now back to the office, but I think really a hybrid model is winning right now, which could be in the office 2-3 times a week, working from home the other 2 or 3 days, depending on which one. So that poses challenges for owners of companies, because if you've got staff coming in 2 to 3 times a week, you can alternate that. So you'll have, say, half the team in on the Monday and the Tuesday, and then the rest of the team on the Wednesday and the Thursday. Well, there you go. You've technically got 50% less demand for space within the office. Do you then downsize and so on? So there's all sorts of changes that have come about, and it's interesting what we've got coming. With an upcoming recession, what's that going to do? The trends that are coming, but listen, this is just evolution. This is normal. We have to evolve. We can't stand still. So yeah. So what market risks? I mean, there's the pandemic, the residual effect. I mean, it's changed everything, and I think as well on a residential level, if you were commuting into London 5 days a week, well, you was trying to get as close to the city as possible, right? To reduce the commute. Whereas if you're now commuting into the city once or twice a week, you might say, you know what, let me get a bit further away from the city. It makes things a bit more bearable to get out into a bit more space, because typically that means your money's going a bit further and you're able to get yourself a bigger property. So when investing in commercial real estate, there's many different types for you to be choosing from. There's little doubt that UK commercial property, will be seen as a diversifier for multi-asset portfolios. And in the face of increasing economic trouble, if it has a stable and predictable tenant base, then it's a good thing. If you're looking to diversify your investment portfolio, my view is that commercial real estate it's a good option for you to consider. Because property prices aren't typically tied to other asset classes such as cash, fixed income such as bonds and gilts. They tend to fluctuate independently of other asset classes, and they're not typically affected by stock market volatility. And if you're looking to invest in commercial real estate, it's often done in a variety of ways. So I'll sort of just go through a few brief options. You've got direct investment. So a direct investment, it really implies purchasing directly that property. So you might buy, for example, a warehouse. Well, that's you making a direct investment in that warehouse, and then of course renting it out. You've got direct commercial property funds, so you'll pool your money with a multitude of other investors, and then that fund will go out and as a collective vehicle purchase multiple properties. So it could be shopping centres and so on. You've got indirect property funds. So indirect property funds, they invest in collective investment vehicles that they're then invested in publicly traded property companies listed on the stock market. Of course, property shares, they can rise, they can fall in value in tandem with the stock market. So they don't provide the same level of diversification as a traditional investment in real estate. You've also got commercial property investment funds. So for many investors, a specific fund could be the right strategy. It comes down to resources. I mean, investing in a fund, maybe you could do that from as little as, say, £500, whereas buying a warehouse could be £500,000. So going via fund could allow access. So why might commercial real estate be a smart investment choice? Well, in comparison to, say, mainland Europe and the US, the UK has much more favourable leasing arrangements. And that's why investors find commercial to be attractive in the UK. So London offices, they might come with a lease term of, say, 10 years. So the average lease term across the UK is actually 8 years. That's a far cry from, say, a 6-month to a 1-year lease that you'd typically find if you were renting out your residential property. And think about it: if a business is in one of your commercial properties, well, they're building their brand, they're establishing their business based on that property. So for example, let's say, restaurant. John, have you been down to, I don't know, Wimpy's? Yeah, Wimpy's. It's on the high street. It's been there for 15 years. It's not going anywhere. They're renewing the lease each and every time, and that's them building their brand in your property, and you get a lot of continuity with commercial. With residential, your family grows, your family shrinks, people become 18 years old, they leave home, well, your family just shrunk. You don't need the same amount of space. You've just had 2 or 3 kids, you now need extra bedrooms. So of course, with residential, people are moving out, but that's okay. Property investment trusts. So you've got trusts. You might want to invest in a property investment trust, which would combine your money to acquire property and property business shares. Property is a great business for you to be considering. Into what we do, property is our business, and that's pretty much it. I think we'll wrap it up there. We've been going for about 23 minutes, so I think that's enough for this one. But it's good to be back doing these podcasts. I'd like to be doing more of these. If you've not subscribed, so to speak, please do subscribe. Leave us a review, and we'll be sure to come back with more. If you want to reach out for any information to find out more about what we do, please head over to the website. It's fjpinvestment.co.uk.